Well, the first question comes from Dean. Dean says, "Hi Paul, I've just gone through the floods in Brisbane, Australia. My question is about working within and coping throughout a crisis. I am wondering if you have any thoughts on how to best deal with my own stress as well as my clients during this devastating time." Well, I actually do have a few things to share with you, Dean, so let's see what we've got here. Well, first of all, you're alive and well. So don't forget to celebrate life. It's easy in a crisis to get caught up in all the things you don't like and don't have and forget about what you do have. And you do have life, or you probably wouldn't have been able to write that question. Take the opportunity to recognize and connect to what really has value in life. Food, water, you have plenty of that, shelter, and warmth. Again, if you wrote that question, I suspect you've got food, water, shelter, and warmth. And though the flood may be devastating, remember there's people all over the world, millions and millions of people who do not have food, water, shelter, and warmth, which are the essentials we need for survival. So celebrate that. Look carefully at how much stress is generated due to attachments to items and issues that are ultimately both non-essential and unnecessary. For example, how many people are stressed out because maybe their jewelry got tarnished or their favorite suit got damaged or whatever? None of these things are essential. And to put that in perspective, just imagine if you, prior to the flood, if you lived in a tent and only kept what is necessary in your life, how much negative effect could a flood actually have? All you need to do is dry your clothes out, your tent out, and maybe you need a couple of new notebooks, but nothing would be that devastating. So you'll see that most of what stresses people is the loss of non-essentials. So my advice is help them focus on that and celebrate the fact that the essentials are still available. Become attuned to Mother Nature's needs. If the planet is a rock upon which events occur at random circumstances, or is the planet just a rock floating through space and everything's just random, or is the planet a living being that must also meet her needs? If you see her as a living being, then use the opportunity to cult empathy for the fact that she's healing herself. Make a study of what needs she has met and look at what human beings may have done to contribute to her need for such a reaction, such as the greenhouse effect. Basically, the entire planet is inflamed. Well, I'm sure you know that fire is best managed by water, and Australia's been in a drought condition for a long time. So here, amazingly, we are getting some medicine for the drought and helping the place heal, but people often get into a quandary over the minor reactions in their own life, not looking at the bigger picture. The planet is sending the water where it needs to send it to right itself, to heal itself for the betterment of all. Find the Tao. Tao means the middle way. Whenever faced with a daunting task, some of us are either defeated before we begin and drag along making minimal contributions. Others become aggressive and work themselves into submission, and their contribution often ends up being no greater than those who gave up to begin with. Yet, those practicing Tao, the middle way, take this opportunity to find a healthy working pace and contribute effectively. So, the way I would approach it is, if you were beginning a 100-mile run through the mountains, you probably wouldn't blast off with a sprint and find yourself gasping for air and dead at 5 kilometers. You'd have to pace yourself. So to the degree that the task is daunting, as you said, go about it with a pace that would give you the capacity to be an effective contributor day by day, but do not burn yourself out knowing the magnitude of the task is big. Simply work at it efficiently and effectively, like you were running a 100-mile race. Creativity. With so much ruin, the opportunity to express your creativity is at hand. In each task you do, my advice is to open yourself to create something more beautiful than before. Many things will be ruined. Houses will need to be rebuilt. Cars will need to be repaired. Gardens will need to be rebuilt. So take this opportunity to create beauty. See if you can make something potentially more sustainable than it was before. Now that you know what a flood can do, what sort of changes might you make knowing that it could happen again? Take the opportunity to create something more simple yet more effective than before. Remember, if you were living in a tent, it would be no big deal. So where can you use this awareness opportunity to create simplicity in the place of what may have been complexity that now is no longer functional due to the changes in the environment? Also, it's a great chance to learn new life skills that may be needed in the future. As you may have noticed by looking at the news, this type of event is happening more and more frequently on the planet, and I would state my opinion that it is going to happen much more frequently, and it may happen repeatedly in places that are particularly dried out. So see what kind of new life skills you can develop out of this opportunity. Relationships. In a crisis, we usually have the opportunity to spend time with ourselves. So look at your own life and see where you were flooded before. What needed to change that now brings you into better self-awareness or relationship with yourself? So whenever something happens in our life, if something burns down, excessive heat, we need to look into our life and see where we were already burning down. Typically, you'll see that the environment is mirroring us in some way. If human beings are too hot, they've made the planet too hot. So when the planet has to cool down, it cools you down. You're part of the planet. So look into your own life and see where you can identify opportunity to balance yourself based on this beautiful message. It's also a great time to cherish the relationships with the friends and family that we have. Hopefully they're all okay and have had the opportunity to meet their needs for food, warmth, shelter, and the things that really sustain life, and celebrate that with your loved ones. Cultivate new social and professional relationships that may well nurture us in the future. You're going to come into contact with all sorts of people who are not handling the stress well, who may need your guidance and your capacity to be still and in the Tao to help them. Also, keep it simple. When dealing with more than usual amounts of stress, it is best to simplify any and all aspects of your life possible. Helping your clients by keeping them grounded in the simple essentials of life and keeping their coaching simple is good stress management. So when you're coaching people and when you're training people, keep their exercise program simple. Don't give them a bunch of new complicated things to do in their life. Try to help them nourish their needs for movement, friendship, coaching, and guidance through simple procedures. You can always give them more to do if they've successfully implemented what you've given them. I would just keep it to one or two items that they are to learn or to develop or practice, or just keep it simple. Don't try to teach them new things. Just use this opportunity for connection and co-creation of health and vitality. Also, understand process relative to outcome. And what does that mean? It means live and enjoy the creative process. Don't wait for the outcome to be met to relax and celebrate. In a situation like this, people can put so much pressure on themselves and not allow themselves to feel complete or happy until everything's restored back to normal, their Rolex watch works, their flowers are blooming, etc. But many people do not have the endurance to make such a journey without a mental, emotional, or physical collapse, at which time they often fall into apathy, which is no help to anybody. So my advice is pace yourself and pace them and figure out little ways to celebrate. So take the task that needs to be done. The yard's a mess, the house is a mess, the carpets need to be torn out, the car needs to be fixed. Find a simple way to celebrate with each milestone or accomplishment so that a person can feel rewarded in the process. And by giving them simple process goals along the way, it allows them to celebrate and find some peace within themselves. I do have an entire lesson on goal setting which goes over some of these things in detail, which might be useful to you and others. It's at ppssuccess.com. It's PPS Lesson 3 on goal setting. Well, humor is also important. Do your best to keep a sense of humor. As Osho says, playfulness is a measure of intelligence. So don't drown when you don't need to drown. Find some humor in the event, in the experience. See what you can do for yourself and others by keeping it light. You might want to try doing some research on the internet for some good water jokes, and I'm sure you can create some levity where people are overly invested in gravity. And after all, don't forget, we're all soaking wet on the inside, so it's amazing to me how people get freaked out about rain or whatever, or a little wetness when we're already wet on the inside. So try to keep things in perspective. So hopefully some of those things are helpful.